Arterial plaque was declared irreversible. Once it's in your arteries, it's permanent. That is the position most cardiologists still hold. They'll tell you the best you can do is slow it down with medication, avoid fat, exercise more, and hope you don't become one of the 18 million people who die of cardiovascular disease every single year. And for decades, patients accepted that. But 3 major clinical trials say something completely different. And slowly, very slowly, some cardiologists are beginning to admit it. The problem is not that the research doesn't exist. The problem is where medicine is designed to look. The average cardiology appointment lasts 8 minutes. 8 minutes. There is no time in 8 minutes to discuss what you are eating, how you are sleeping, or why your inflammatory markers are elevated. There is time to read a lab report, write a prescription, and move to the next patient. And here's something that most people don't know. Fewer than 20% of medical schools in the United States require even a single course in nutrition. Cardiologists are not trained in dietary intervention. They're trained in pharmacology, in procedure, in surgery. So when they hand you a statin prescription and a low-fat pamphlet, they're not hiding something from you. Most of them genuinely don't know there's another way. But there is another way, and the research has been there for decades. Let's get into the science. Let me give you 3 studies, not opinion, but published peer-reviewed clinical trials. The first is the Lion Diet Heart Study. Researchers followed patients who had already had one heart attack and divided them into 2 groups. One group followed the standard American Heart Association low-fat diet. The other group followed a specific Mediterranean-style dietary protocol. The trial was stopped early. Stopped early because the results were so dramatic that it was considered unethical to keep the control group on the standard diet. The dietary group showed a 70% reduction in cardiac events, not 10%, not 20%, 70%. The second is the Lifestyle Heart Trial, published in The Lancet in 1990 by Dr. Dean Ornish and his colleagues. This trial did something that most in cardiology considered impossible at the time. They used non-invasive imaging to measure the actual size of coronary artery plaque, plaque that was already inside the arteries before and after a dietary and lifestyle intervention. After 1 year, plaque measurably shrank in the dietary group. After 5 years, it shrank further. The control group, following standard care, showed continued progression. Plaque that was already there physically reversed. The third is the 2004 clinical study published in Clinical Nutrition that gave patients a specific food daily and measured carotid intima media thickness, the thickness of the plaque lining the arteries of the neck, over 12 months. The group receiving the food intervention showed a 30% reduction in arterial wall thickness. The control group, who changed nothing, showed a 9% increase over the same period. 70% reduction in cardiac events. Measurable plaque regression. 30% reduction in arterial wall thickness. These are not fringe results from obscure journals. They are sitting in the literature available to every cardiologist in practice and largely ignored because there is no commercial infrastructure to promote them. Now, I need to tell you something that will probably contradict what your doctor told you. And I say this not to make you distrust your doctor, but because understanding this distinction is the entire reason dietary intervention works when standard advice doesn't. High cholesterol does not cause arterial plaque. Oxidized cholesterol does. Stay with me for a moment, because this changes everything. LDL, what everyone calls bad cholesterol, is not inherently dangerous. LDL is a transport molecule. Its job is to carry fat-soluble nutrients through the bloodstream. In a healthy, low-inflammation environment, LDL does its job and moves on. No problem. The trouble begins when LDL gets damaged. When your body is flooded with inflammatory signals from seed oils, Refined sugar, blood sugar spikes, chronic stress, LDL particles become oxidized. Oxidized LDL is sticky, it's reactive, and it behaves completely differently. It burrows into the artery wall. It triggers an immune response, and that immune response is what becomes plaque. This is why two people can have identical cholesterol numbers and completely different arterial health. And it's why a drug that simply lowers your total LDL number without addressing the underlying inflammation is treating a measurement, not the disease. You could have high cholesterol and clean arteries if your inflammation is low. You could have normal cholesterol and be building plaque right now if your diet is chronically inflammatory. That is the distinction that changes your entire strategy. So, let me walk you through exactly how plaque forms, because until you see the mechanism, the foods I'm going to show you won't fully make sense. Here is something almost nobody tells patients. Autopsy studies have found early arterial plaque in people as young as 20 years old. Not 60-year-olds who spent a lifetime eating badly, 20-year-olds. In some studies, meaningful plaque buildup has been found in teenagers. This process starts decades before any cardiologist will order a scan. Here's what happens step by step. Stage 1. Endothelial damage. Your arteries are lined by a single layer of cells called the endothelium, and it is extraordinarily sensitive. Blood sugar spikes, oxidized seed oils, processed food additives, and chronic inflammation all damage that lining. Once it's damaged, it becomes permeable. Things begin to get in that shouldn't. Stage 2. Foam cells. Oxidized LDL particles slip through the damaged lining into the artery wall. Your immune system sends macrophages, white blood cells, to destroy them. But those macrophages absorb so much oxidized LDL that they transform into what pathologists call foam cells. Foam cells are the seeds of what becomes plaque. Clusters of them form a fatty streak, visible in those autopsies of young people. Stage 3. Calcification. Your body, trying to contain this growing mass, deposits a calcium shell over the foam cells. This is your body protecting itself. And, ironically, it's what makes the plaque dangerous. The hardened shell can crack. When it cracks, the body rushes to form a clot to seal the crack. That clot can block the artery entirely. That is a heart attack. Stage 4. Progression. With every day of continued inflammatory eating, the plaque grows, the artery narrows, blood pressure rises because the heart is now pumping against a narrower pipe. At a certain point, you get the diagnosis, but by then, as with diabetes, you're being caught decades into the process, not at the beginning. Now, here is the analogy I want you to hold on to because it explains both the problem and the solution in about 10 seconds. Think about the pipes under your kitchen sink. They don't clog overnight. It's years of grease, residue, soap scum, and debris, each day depositing a microscopic layer. You don't notice anything until one day you turn on the tap and the water just sits there. That's a heart attack. But here is what the plumber knows that your cardiologist may never have told you. You can dissolve that buildup without ripping out the pipes. And that is precisely what the right foods do at the cellular level inside your artery walls, if you give them a chance to work. When arterial plaque reaches a critical threshold, 4 systems begin to fail in a predictable sequence. The heart. Narrowed coronary arteries starve the heart muscle of oxygen. This is a heart attack. It kills someone in the United States every 34 seconds. The brain. When a piece of plaque ruptures and a clot travels upward, it blocks blood flow to the brain. That's a stroke, the leading cause of long-term adult disability worldwide. The kidneys. Chronically reduced blood flow through hardened arteries accelerates kidney disease, which is why heart disease and kidney disease so often travel together. The extremities. Peripheral artery disease causes progressive pain, wounds that won't heal, and in severe cases, amputation. It's one of the least discussed and most devastating complications of cardiovascular disease. These are not rare edge cases. This is the leading cause of death on Earth, and the current standard model, a statin prescription and a low-fat pamphlet handed to you in 8 minutes, has not reversed that trajectory. Let me return to those 3 studies for a moment. The Lion Diet Heart Trial, the Lifestyle Heart Trial, the Carotid Thickness Study. I want you to understand something important about why you've probably never heard of them. The Lion Diet Heart Study was published in 1994. The Ornish Trial was published in 1990. The Carotid Plaque Study, 2004. This research is not new. It did not appear last week on a blog. It has been sitting in peer-reviewed journals for between 20 and 35 years. And yet the standard of cardiovascular care has barely shifted. Here's why. A dietary protocol cannot be patented, and olive oil cannot generate $14 billion in annual revenue. A handful of sardines cannot be sold as a prescription medication. There is no commercial infrastructure in the pharmaceutical industry to promote a food-based intervention, because food-based interventions do not produce pharmaceutical profits. That doesn't mean there's a conspiracy in a room somewhere. It means the incentive system in medicine is built to find drug solutions, not dietary ones. And in that system, the Lion trial gets 1 journal publication and a brief citation. The statin trial gets a $400 million marketing campaign. You, personally, watching this right now, need to know what that research actually says, because your cardiologist may not bring it up. Your insurance company does not cover a nutritional consultation, and the 8-minute appointment doesn't have room for it. So this falls to you. And the good news is that what the research hands you is powerful, and it starts working fast. Before I show you the specific foods, I want you to consider something. Your arteries don't know what year it is. They don't know what your diagnosis was. They don't know how long this has been going on. They only respond to the chemical signals they receive, today, tomorrow, next week. Change those signals, and the artery wall begins to change what it does. Not in theory. In the clinical trials I just cited, measurable change happened within weeks to months. Your body has a hierarchy of signals: inflammation, blood sugar, oxidative stress, vascular tone, sleep quality, and in most people with cardiovascular risk, one of those signals is far more broken than the rest. Until you identify which one, you're making broad changes and hoping something works. I want to tell you something I got wrong. For years, early in my career, I taught the standard framework without questioning it. Saturated fat raises LDL. LDL causes plaque. Reduce fat. Prescribe statins if numbers don't respond. That was the model. I repeated it. I handed out the pamphlet. When I started reading the primary literature, not the consensus guidelines, but the actual trial data, I found a picture that was more complicated and honestly more hopeful than what I had been taught. I found studies showing that the relationship between dietary fat and cardiovascular disease had been systematically misrepresented in foundational research. I found papers going back to the 1970s. Researchers who had raised concerns about the sugar and seed oil data and been ignored. I found the Ornish trial sitting in the Lancet, showing plaque regression largely unsighted in the clinical training I had received. I had to change what I believed. And when I got to the other side of that change, I found a model that was far more precise, far more empowering, and for the people I work with, far more effective. What I'm about to show you is what that research actually says, not the pamphlet, the actual evidence. The strategy works on 2 levels simultaneously: adding foods that actively work against plaque formation and inflammation, and removing the foods driving the damage in the first place. Both are non-negotiable. One without the other gives you half the result. What to eat? Fatty fish, sardines, salmon, mackerel, herring, 2 to 3 servings per week. The EPA and DHA in these fish do not just reduce inflammation. Studies show they reduce triglycerides, reduce arterial stiffness, lower fibrinogen, a clotting factor, and in several trials have been linked to measurable reduction in plaque burden. Sardines in olive oil are one of the most nutrient-dense, cost-effective foods on this list. If you genuinely cannot eat fish, a pharmaceutical-grade fish oil, providing a minimum of 1.5 Gs of combined EPA and DHA daily. Pomegranate. This one surprises nearly everyone. That 2004 clinical nutrition study I mentioned, the one showing 30% reduction in arterial wall thickness, the intervention was pomegranate juice daily for 12 months. The control group, who changed nothing, showed a 9% increase in plaque thickness over the same period. The active compounds are called punicolagens. They reduce oxidative stress directly at the arterial wall. A small glass of 100% pomegranate juice daily or a pomegranate extract supplement. Raw garlic or aged black garlic. Multiple published trials show garlic reduces LDL oxidation, reduces arterial stiffness, reduces blood pressure, and in a 2016 study showed reduced plaque volume in carotid arteries after 12 weeks. 1 to 2 raw cloves daily. If raw garlic is too intense, which it is for most people, aged black garlic extract achieves similar results without the intensity. Leafy greens, arugula, spinach, kale, Swiss chard, beet greens. These are among the highest dietary sources of nitrates, and your body converts those nitrates to nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the primary signal that tells your artery wall to relax, expand, and reduce pressure. It also improves endothelial function, directly repairing that damaged lining I described earlier that allows plaque to begin. A large serving of leafy greens daily is one of the most direct cardiovascular interventions available through food. Extra virgin olive oil. High polyphenol cold pressed. The polyphenols in quality olive oil, particularly oleuropein and oleocanthal, have direct anti-inflammatory effects. The pre-dimed trial, one of the largest nutrition intervention studies ever conducted, showed a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events in the group assigned high polyphenol olive oil compared to the control group. Use it generously, 3 to 4 TBSP daily. Do not treat it as a condiment. Treat it as medicine. Berries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries. The anthocyanins, the compounds that give berries their deep color, reduce LDL oxidation, reduce endothelial inflammation, and have been shown in multiple studies to reduce arterial stiffness. A 2019 study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that 200 g of blueberries daily for 1 month significantly improved flow-mediated dilation, a direct measure of arterial flexibility. A cup of mixed frozen berries daily. Frozen is fine. The polyphenols are preserved. Turmeric with black pepper and fat. Curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, suppresses NF-κB, which is one of the master switches controlling systemic inflammatory signaling. It reduces CRP, reduces IL-6, and reduces oxidative modification of LDL. Without black pepper, curcumin is poorly absorbed. Bioavailability is less than 1%. With piperine from black pepper, absorption increases by 2,000%. Add turmeric to eggs, soups, sauces, and roasted vegetables. Always with black pepper and a fat source. Walnuts, the only nut with a meaningful amount of plant-based omega-3, ALA, also rich in L-arginine, the direct precursor to nitric oxide. A 2020 study in Circulation showed that daily walnut consumption significantly reduced inflammatory biomarkers and improved LDL particle quality. A small handful daily. What to completely eliminate? Seed oils, canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, vegetable oil, grapeseed oil. These are highly processed polyunsaturated fats that are chemically unstable. They oxidize rapidly during processing, during storage, and especially during cooking. Oxidized fats drive LDL oxidation, which is the actual molecular mechanism that starts the plaque cascade. This is not a fringe position. It is supported by a growing body of lipid oxidation research. Replacing seed oils with olive oil, avocado oil, butter, or tallow is the single highest impact dietary swap on this list. Refined carbohydrates and sugar. Not because of cholesterol, but because of what happens to your blood sugar and insulin every time you eat them. A blood sugar spike triggers an insulin surge. That insulin surge triggers systemic inflammation. Chronic repeated inflammation damages the endothelium, the lining, and starts the cascade. Bread, pasta, white rice, breakfast cereal, juice, sweetened beverages, and anything made with refined flour is delivering a repeated inflammatory hit to your artery walls multiple times a day. Trans fats. Still present in many packaged goods as partially hydrogenated oils. These directly cause LDL oxidation and endothelial damage. Read labels. If you see partially hydrogenated, put it back. Ultra-processed foods. The research is now clear. Ultra-processed food consumption is independently associated with cardiovascular mortality, even after controlling for individual nutrients. The combination of refined carbohydrates, seed oils, sodium, emulsifiers, and synthetic flavors creates a perfect environment for endothelial damage. If a food has more than 5 ingredients and you cannot name all of them, treat it as an inflammatory event for your arteries. Here is how to do this in practice and not in theory. Step 1. Pantry audit. Before you buy a single new food, remove the seed oils. Canola, vegetable, corn, soybean. Every bottle goes. This takes 10 minutes and costs you nothing. It is your highest leverage first action. Step 2. Add 1 fatty fish meal this week. Not a complete dietary overhaul, 1 meal. Sardines on a salad with olive oil and lemon is an excellent starting point. Cheap, extremely nutrient-dense, and one of the best studied foods for cardiovascular health. Step 3. Install the berry habit. Buy a bag of frozen mixed berries. Add a cup to your morning routine. Over yogurt, blended, or eaten straight. Under $2 a day, and the evidence behind it is strong. Step 4. Switch your cooking fat. Extra virgin olive oil becomes your primary fat. Buy in a dark bottle. Store away from heat. Use generously. Step 5. Consider time-restricted eating. Limiting your eating window to 8 to 10 hours, not eating after dinner, delaying your first meal to mid-morning, gives your cardiovascular system a period of low insulin and low inflammatory signaling every single day. This alone has been shown in multiple trials to reduce cardiovascular risk markers, reduce blood pressure, and reduce LDL oxidation. Step 6. Walk for 10 minutes after meals. This blunts the post-meal blood sugar spike, which is one of the primary drivers of endothelial damage and LDL oxidation. 10 minutes, not a run, a walk. The data on this is remarkably consistent. 2 supplements worth serious research: vitamin K2 MK7 form. K2 activates a protein called matrix GLA protein, which physically removes calcium from the arterial wall and redirects it to bone. This is the mechanism by which calcification of plaque can be reduced over time. It is one of the most underutilized cardiovascular nutrients in practice. The standard research-supported dose is 100 to 200 micrograms of MK7 daily. Magnesium glycinate. Most people with cardiovascular risk are deficient in magnesium. Magnesium supports vascular tone, reduces arterial stiffness, lowers blood pressure, and reduces CRP, one of the key inflammatory markers associated with plaque progression. Take it in the evening. It also improves sleep quality, which independently reduces cardiovascular risk. One essential note: if you are currently on statin medication or any cardiovascular prescription, do not stop taking it without speaking to your physician. This protocol is designed to work alongside your current care, and ideally to give you and your doctor a productive conversation about monitoring your inflammatory markers and, over time, potentially reducing your pharmacological burden as they improve. Your physician should be your partner in this, not your obstacle. Bring them the studies. Ask to monitor your hsCRP, your oxidized LDL, and your carotid intima media thickness, not just your total cholesterol number. Now, if you want to go deeper, specifically on which blood markers actually tell you what's happening inside your arteries right now, and why the standard cholesterol panel misses the most important information, watch this video right here, because the number your doctor is watching may not be the whole story. If this science-backed approach to heart health has changed the way you look at your diet and your future, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. We are dedicated to uncovering the medical research that often stays buried in journals. Let's take control of our health together. The next vital discovery is coming soon.